So here we are again with part 2 of our introduction to the Gingerbread Village applique project. This is the first design that we'll be using. It is the church, and in the previous portion of this video I did explain all about why we have to do this in order to have our ScanNCut 550 or 650 recognize the applique positioning stitches that we will change to the Brothers Color Code applique material so that the ScanNCut machines 550 and 650 will recognize them and complete the conversion to an FCM file, and then we will increase the sizes appropriately at our ScanNCut machines. So if you recall, we had changed the three elements of the applique position to black. These right here, this first set of stitches are the applique position stitches for the left and right side fronts of the church. The third color choice here, I have also in black so that we can see it better, is the steeple right here. It's the applique position where you would put down the fabric for your element that you're going to use as the steeple. And then the third one down here, the fifth color choice, is the front portico here, the large front door area, like the porch of the church. And we've turned it black just so you'll recall that we are able to see it better on our computer screens, because the applique position, applique material, and applique thread colors are very pale and sometimes they're hard to see, particularly on a video. So we've got them black. Now, it's very important that you use the appropriate stitches for creating the FCMs. Most designers design their applique elements so that a running stitch indicates the position on the background fabric where you are traditionally to put down your applique pretty fabric, say your decorative fabric that will become the applique. That is a running stitch. The stitches right here below those running stitches is actually a bean stitch, which means it sews forward 2 stitches and back 1, 2 stitches and back 1, 2 stitches and back 1, which is kind of a security stitch. It's also thicker and heavier. It also can distort the way the FCM is designed. Some people here for these applique tack down stitches use a open zigzag stitch, and that will definitely cause problems creating an FCM with a zigzag stitch, because then the ScanNCut would just cut it in a zigzag format rather than a running format around. So we've got the two parts here for the left and right sides of the church. We've got the steeple, and we've got the main portico, the front porch area of the church. Now, there's two things we need to cover in this video, and I'm trying not to make this video too overly long, since the introduction was quite long and was very extensive in explaining why we were having to do what we had to do. The main thing we'll do, of course, is to change the colors of these three elements here so that the ScanNCut machine can recognize that. But before we do that, we need to look at this element right here. You see those are two pieces, the left section and the right section. If I were to save this just as it is now in the PE Design format, the PES format, and then send it to the ScanNCut, it would recognize this as two pieces combined in one element. The steeple would be one element. The portico, the front porch, would be another element. But this one right here, because there's two separate pieces there, would come in as two pieces. And once it comes in as two pieces on the ScanNCut, 550, 650, you cannot separate it at the machine. The only thing you'd be able to do there would be to save it back to the thumb drive, take the thumb drive into Canvas, and separate them there. Well, we're trying to avoid as many of those unnecessary steps as possible, so we're going to break it apart here. Now, this can be done in all versions of PE Design. The changing of the thread colors to applique material will only hold fast using version 7, 8, 9, or next, and version 10 of the PE Design palette software. What we need to do is break this apart, and we can do that all the way back to version 1 of the software, I believe. But that's not going to do you any good because you wouldn't be able to change the color code there. So I'm going to separate this design by color so that I can move these aside and show you what's going on here. I'm going to select the church, right-click, divide stitches by color, and I am using PE Design version 9. Ordinarily I would be using version 10, but I know so many of you don't have version 10. I'm using version 9. I believe you can do this in version 8. I don't really remember about version 7 and version 8 because it's been a long time since I've used those. So we've got this all separated now. Each piece is an individual element. Now you can see the dotted lines surrounding each of the different elements of the design. With the church selected, I have right-clicked and then divided the stitches by color. So now I'm going to select color number 1, right-click, select objects. And you'll see that my handles now, instead of being around the entire church design, are just around this area right here. That is encompassing the left side of the front of the church and the right side of the front of the church. So I'm going to see if I can get my crosshair pieces here and move it to the side a little bit. Well, it just doesn't want to cooperate with me. There we go. So if I move it to the side. Okay, now you can see what I'm talking about. There are two separate pieces here. If we send this to the ScanNCut, it would put these together as one piece, and increasing the size by about 2 millimeters more or less would be very difficult to do because they are odd shaped to start with, but they are encompassed into a rectangle shape now as a unit. So it would increase the rectangle shape by 2 millimeters vertically and horizontally, and that would not necessarily increase the size of our individual elements here. So I'm going to undo this a few times to get it right back into position. Undo, undo, and I believe it's right back into position. So what I want to do here is select the objects again, but I don't want to move them because they need to stay in the same place where they are. Because you're going to be embroidering from this design, and if you've moved them out of the design page area, of course you can't embroider it. Or if you moved them over just a little bit in order to catch it and change its color, then you might not get it lined back up exactly right, and so then your tack down stitches or your placement stitches, whatever, would end up being incorrect. You can, of course, make your changes here and then discard this entire embroidery design, making sure that you use the original embroidery design into your embroidery machine so that it will then have all the elements lined up perfectly. So what I need to do is go up here to split stitches, and because that was the only elements I had selected, that's the only ones that are showing up. So now I just take these scissors when I double click, then that is cut apart. You'll see there is the piece on the right here. And because PE Design software will align things in the design schedule as they are created, the last thing that was created was when I separated those two pieces. So the last thing that was created is down here at the bottom now. Okay? So that it's still in the same position. It's just at the would be quote sewn at a different time. So I'm going to move this back up to the top. I've got it selected, and I'm going to tell it to sew it first. So it moved it back up to the top. But because they are still two separate elements now, it's showing as two elements, even though they're the same color. So what I want to do is to take this first one, got it selected, and I'm going over here and I'm going to turn that from black, which we had only changed it to black so that you could see it. I'm going to change it to Applique Material Thread Color. That's the one at the bottom of the palette here in PE Design that's got the little scissors. It's Applique Material. Okay, that one's Applique Material. This one can stay black. It doesn't matter. If you want to get technical about it, you can change that to Applique Material also, and the ScanNCut will recognize the two pieces and go ahead and create them. Or you can just work with one and tell it that you want two of them while you're at the ScanNCut. So let's go ahead and make it Applique Material too. And then the steeple, we've still got it black, so let's turn it to Applique Material. And the placement stitch right here, let me make sure what these other things are. Let's check the colors of these. This is Applique Material, perfect. Applique Material, perfect. This is Applique Material, that's not perfect, because these are the bean stitches that are the tack down. They need to be another color, and they don't have to be applique or applique position or anything like that. Let's just make them black. Okay, because you'll change the color thread at the machine, or keep the same color thread that you're using. You use one color thread to show the positioning stitches, then you lay your fabric down after you've cut it out of the ScanNCut. You put that down, you bond it down with the iron, and then you sew the tack down stitches of it, and then you would continue on with your whole routine and your color schedule. So we've got the steeple here is Applique Material, and then the tack down stitches of the steeple says Applique Material. We'll make it black, purple, green. It doesn't matter what color you make it. And then the portico, the front door, the large front door portion of the church, it needs to be Applique Material. And number 7, the thread color number 7, which is the tack down stitches, needs to be black. Okay, then the rest of the stitches here are all the finishing decorative stitches, the satin stitches, the scallops, all the little ornaments on the gingerbread church. So we've got that all done. So that's all there is to it. We would now save this design as a PES file, save as, and I'm going to save it in the folder called Gingerbread Village Cutting Files. And I've already saved it as GBV Church 1 PE Design version 9. Okay, so that's what we will save it as. And I've already saved it, so let's change it and give it another name. Because I have been sick and I don't remember what I've done in the previous video, so to be safe, let's just save it again. Gingerbread Village Church 1 PE Design version 9.2.